Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Nuclear Revenge. Story 1. Harass my sweet little sister, fine, I will get you evicted or worse. January 2021. I, 30F, moved my camper van / mobile home closer to my sister's, 26F, flat, to help her recover after a stay in hospital. She had been struggling and was not happy in life, so my goal was to care for her and raise her spirits, while helping her organize and stabilize her life. I was shocked when on my first night there, I was woken at 4 a.m. by enraged screaming from her downstairs neighbor. The woman downstairs was mid-fight with her fella, and I distinctly heard a plate being thrown. I was shocked by how loud they were being, for it to be audible from outside their flat. It was very unsettling for both myself and my sister, as my sister and I have a lot of PTSD from growing up in an abusive household. In the morning I asked my sister about it, and she said that was normal, and that you can't say anything to them about it, or they will start on you. She goes on to explain that one time she had left a note, asking them to keep it down, and the fella had come outside and banged loudly on her front door, trying to fight her. Bear in mind that this guy is 40 plus, balding, 6 feet and drunk, and she is a tiny thin 4FT11 lass with autism. This pissed me off big time, but not nearly as much as when sister admitted that one time, she had been crying to herself in her flat, and the downstairs neighbor decided to call the police on her for it as revenge for asking them to keep it down. Naturally I was completely done at this point. So like any good admin lady, I got to work. I opened a complaint with the housing association and logged every incident of violent drunken behavior that took place. They, as expected, were reluctant to do anything at all, and told me to just call the police if it got bad. I remember thinking to myself, pfft, I can't see us needing the police. But I was wrong. Some nights their fighting was so intense I had to anonymously call 101 and report the DV, for her own safety. This, and the letters that started arriving from the housing association put me on their radar, and soon things got worse. They were in trouble for the noise, the state of their flat, fly-tipping rubbish on the corner, an out-of-control dog that attacked my cat, threatening me, threatening sister, spitting on her door, trying to steal her cat, trying to run over my cat, banging on the door and making threats, playing loud music to keep sister awake on college nights, and so much more. The police started being called a lot, and it was getting so stressful. I was starting to regret making that first complaint. But the rest of the neighbors were on our side, as it affected them just as much. I felt supported by them, and decided to just keep pushing and demanding a solution. I knew eventually the council / housing association would cave in and either rehouse my sister, or, better yet, rehouse the neighbor. By autumn 2022 things had reached boiling point. I installed a Ring doorbell in January 2022 for parcel deliveries, but it ended up being the silver bullet that took the crazy woman down. A multi-agency meeting took place over Teams and they finally upped the pressure on the neighbor after I presented my evidence to them. I remember crying after that meeting, as I left it feeling that they didn't think we had enough to push for an eviction. I was even criticized for having not called the police enough to support my harassment claim. But I gave them my flash drive full of reports anyway, and hoped they would at least look at them. Not all was lost though. The neighbor's fella was told not to attend the property again, and the hope was to distance them, so she could get her life together. She had been given multiple welfare meetings to try and turn her behavior around, and they tried to support her by offering ways to dry out and pick her life up. They really tried to peacefully resolve the situation, and we were even asked to make some adjustments to help her see that we didn't despise her, reporting wasn't malicious. We just felt unsafe and she was being loud, messy, and a nightmare neighbor. But this woman just didn't care. She continued to let her partner back at the flat, and they inevitably fought. The police were called twice in a 24-hour period, and I wasn't even the one to call. The shouting was so bad, another neighbor called them. After the police left on the second time, she took a small bag of stuff and left. Then, silence. Days went by and nobody saw or heard from either of them. After a week, I still waited with bated breath, for the return of the crazy and all of her bullshit. But it never came. And now it never will. By week 3 we had started to relax, assuming she had finally gone to rehab or was drying out somewhere safe. Nobody on the street knew where she had gone, and it was uncommonly calm on the block. And then, I get the first call. Friday, it's the police, informing me that they have reviewed the mountain of evidence I provided and they are keen to go for a harassment charge all of a sudden. Now anyone who has endured harassment will tell you how flipping hard it is to prove. So I was happy we were finally being listened to. I was even praised for how detailed and professional the reports were. Hence why I should have put this in r/pro-revenge. But wait. It's not over yet. We know full well that the housing association needed the harassment charge to get her removed from the property. So without even being told, we knew what was coming next. She would likely be told she is being evicted, problems would all soon be over. Monday, I get a call telling me a flat is available on the block if I'm interested. They know my situation and living outside in a transit van isn't ideal. I'm sent the paperwork to apply and fill it in. I'm at this point feeling bad. If I'm housed in her flat, I'd feel guilty for having been the force behind her removal. Yeah, I know, it's her own fault, but you can surely understand why I would feel so weird about it. So imagine how we felt when this happened. Tuesday, email from the lovely chap at the housing association, asking if we had heard about neighbor. I misunderstood the email and thought they had asked if we had heard from her. And I email back explaining nobody had seen her in nearly a month. He replies. Adult Services reported to us this morning that neighbor had passed away last night. I start bawling. I cry, what have I done? That woman drove us absolutely mad, and she was a horrible person. But she did not deserve to die. I'd wished for the day when I'd see her being evicted. I had joked about sitting outside with a beer on the lawn. But not once had I considered she might die. While I'm not currently aware of how she passed away, I do know that on the Monday she'd been in a meeting with social services, police, and the housing association. They likely told her about the charge and her inevitable eviction. She and her scruffy fella seemed to have gone out and just took too much. I don't think it was Sui's lied, as the officer we had been dealing with came round on the Wednesday to tell us he was naturally dropping the charges. I expressed guilt and he told me it was inevitable when that much drugs and alcohol are involved. I'm heartbroken. I know it's not the case, but it feels like this is my fault. I never thought for 1 second a woman as selfish and blind to the impact she had, would let this happen to her. We have left flowers by her door, and for the first few nights after she passed I lit candles for her. I'm sad that she never took the help offered. Because if she had stayed away from her fella, and tried to slow down on the drink and drugs, she might have had a chance. Ultimately, I feel this is nuclear revenge, as rather than getting my sister's crazy neighbor evicted, I got her killed. And I feel terrible. Story 2. My ex started abusing me again. I ruined her college education. I, 21M, met my ex-girlfriend Renee, fake name, 20F, 4 years ago when we were 17 and 16 in specific. We were off and on because of her behavior and mine as well. It was toxic and we weren't best suited. I was untrusting and cold some days. She was always drinking and going out with other people and couldn't be bothered with me unless she had a bad day. She constantly went out drinking, sending explicit pics to other guys. Having sex and then blaming it on assault so I wouldn't freak out. And I handled it poorly by being strict and creating rules and being way too overprotective of her. Which I can admit is my bad. But she always made me the source of her issues and blamed me for her parents hating her. Her sister being mean to her. Not having a social life. Even thought I stopped her from suicide when I met her, helped her finish high school, and helped her get a scholarship to my local university. We finally broke up when she moved here for college from a few states away almost 2 years ago. When she at 19 started dating a minor behind my back. I went on with my life and she went on with hers. I met somebody and we had a perfectly healthy relationship and she brought out the best in me and made me become a better person until a month ago when I lost her to complications in her life and she had to leave. I grieved as I needed and continued trying to do better like she always wanted for me. Flash forward a week ago when Renee and I ran into each other and started talking again, told her how my life was going, she talked about hers. And we started being friends again. She knew I was grieving and at first was incredibly sympathetic and I figured we could have a good friendship. After a day she started comparing me to her new boyfriend, 21M, and making fun of me for things I lacked and would rub in my face how better he is at everything compared to me. The shoe dropped when she started rubbing in my face about having sex with him and how it must suck knowing I can't again with my ex. I'm fine with being insulted but bringing her up knowing my pain pushed a line. I told her to knock it off and don't talk about it and she proceeded to treat me like a client at her job. She helps mentally disabled people and knows I have a slight disability, and kept telling me that if I don't want to be talked to like that then stop telling her what to do. She gets drunk one night and starts yelling at me about our relationship and all the issues she endured for being with me. I apologized and made my amends because I can agree I wasn't always the best. Never expected her to apologize for hers but made clear how sorry I was for my part as I know I wasn't always correct, and she finally went to bed. Next night she calls me at 1 a.m., she gets incredibly drunk. Starts calling me names and saying I'm mean because she's bringing up sex with her BF and how she's doing it while texting to me and I get sick of it and tell her to go away. She makes. Story 3. Guy behind me in traffic was blinding me in traffic with his high beams so I violated his retinas with the full force of an afternoon sun. I was driving home from work and traffic was backed up pretty badly for a few miles. It was stop and go. When I get stuck in that, I'll usually back about 75 feet off the car in front of me so that I can hold a pace and move at a slow, but constant roll, like the semi-trucks do. This way I'm not participating in the bumper-to-bumper move and brake like the rest of the smooth brain drivers. Some dude in an Acura crossover was behind me, and I guess he was getting upset because I wasn't 2 feet from the car in front of me, driving like a smooth brain. So he gets up on my butt and starts beeping his horn at me. LOL, I think to myself as I turn up my radio. But then he starts flashing his brights at me, which is where I get annoyed. He's in one of those Acuras that has the super bright LED headlights. My car is much lower than his, so his low beams are already pretty bright in my mirrors. Bright enough that I don't want to look in them. The first time he flashed his high beams it put spots in my vision for a moment. It genuinely hurt my eyes. After the first flash, he waits for about 10 seconds, beeps his horn, and then flashes me again. Now I'm getting pissed. I'm thinking, where the fuck do you want me to go? Do you really think being 2 feet from the car in front of you will make traffic move faster? Then he flashes me a third time, but this time he held them on for about 15 seconds. Time for the gloves to come off. During those 15 seconds, as I'm looking away from my mirrors, I see my 14,000 lumen searchlight sitting in my passenger seat, at which point I'm immediately overcome by a wave of chaotic lawful excitement. What he has just set in motion cannot be stopped. I think to myself, oh buddy, you just opened the wrong can of worms. You're gonna learn today. I grab the flashlight and set it to its absolute max 14,000 lumen brightness setting. The flashlight has a sensor in it to automatically dim the light if facing down on a table, because otherwise the diodes would get so hot they would melt the lens. The 14,000 lumen setting is so intense, the 57 watt-hour battery can only hold it for 180 seconds before the flashlight automatically notches down to a measly 9,500 lumens. During those 180 seconds, the light will burn through 15% of its battery power. For reference on just how bright this is, the literal fucking sun emits a luminosity of 11,000 lumens per square foot on a bright and clear day. I turn around and aim it straight out the back of my rear window. My car is pretty noisy, so before I turn it on, I rev up my engine to make sure Captain Smoothbrain is eyes forward when I violate his retinas with the full force of an afternoon sun. I hit the power button and can only imagine the freight train of shock and pain that plowed over this man. It was so bright, his automatic headlights shut off because the car thought it was daytime. With the light on, I could see him clear as glass through his tinted windshield. He was covering his eyes and looking down. Probably screaming. I watched him try and flip down his sun visor, but his hand couldn't find it, as I thought to myself, burn you motherfucker, burn. I imagine my facial expression was similar to that of a 6-year-old roasting insects with a magnifying glass on a bright summer day. After about 5 seconds of blinding light I took mercy and shut it off. He proceeded to back way the hell off, and move over to a different lane. Was this an unsafe thing for me to do? Absolutely. Was this illegal? Almost certainly. Was it warranted? Without question. Possibly the highlight of my year. Drive safe, and don't be a dick to the car in front of you. Because they might just have the tools to teach you a lesson. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.